So please welcome Eluña Noelle to the show. A welcome, Eluña.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Ashley. It's nice to be here
Oh,
with you.
so wonderful. I've had people reach out to me a lot and say, "Will you please have Eluña on your show?" And I always was thinking in my mind, that's a long stretch, and because I've listened to you so much. And then when you connect back and I get this, we finally find the date and you've been traveling so much and I'm so grateful and so honored because I get excited to share this these people that come into my awareness with my world, and you're one of those on the top of my list. You are this being of this magic that you've discovered, and it's just so watching you and going down all the little paths that you've gone down in your life, where it leads you to today, is just amazing. And I'm so excited to share all of this magic with everyone. But it's also interesting is I grew up in Washington State.
Hmm.
So when you share, you go into the woods and the rain and you talk about, we're going to talk about the void and how you were trained as a little child. And that's part of your life is so fascinating to me. But when I was listening to you talk about being raised in the Pacific Northwest and how the weather and how you connected to nature, because it is a hard place to be when you're with the weather, right? But I just remember as a child too, when I was listening to you reflecting on my childhood, I just remember always being on the playground with an umbrella, looking at the puddles and just pretending that I was like, they were little islands and I was in this different place. And you just brought that out in me. Like just the other day when I said, oh my gosh, she was raised where I was. So anyway, I thought that was a fun little synchronicity. But
Yeah, that's very sweet.
but I want you to go back to really like when you were born and when you started to at 3 years old really started to realize what you came here to do, who you were
Mhm.
at such a, I mean, I have children that are 16 and 19. So I was
Mhm.
listening to you talk about all these different ages, they're 3 to 7, 10, 14, all these different times in your life. And it was so condensed. And even graduating from high school and at 16, I mean, all that you did in 16 years to, is crazy, amazing. So let's go to your magic, Alunia, and that name I love to say.
Mhm. Thank you. Yeah, I guess starting from when I was young. I have always had a I would use the term freakish to kind of downplay, but I have a very extensive memory, and it's just one of my gifts. Although for a while it was a curse, and I'll get into that. But I've had a very extensive memory that is just very detailed and can recall very finite details rather easily. And so as a infant, I can still remember being in the crib. I remember one of the first times I ever opened my eyes when I was waking up from a nap, actually, and I saw this face that I had never seen. And it struck me so much because the features were very distinct. The face was different than any other person in my family. And she had very, very large breasts. And I just remember being really like overwhelmed by this face, not in a scared way, just like, wow, I've never seen a face like this. And I explained that experience when I was 6 to my mother in the kitchen, and I started telling her about that and describing the person, and she said, there's no way you can remember that. That's your Aunt Debbie. You haven't seen her for 6 years. And I said, I know, but I do remember. Anyway, just very funny.
Oh my
So yeah,
gosh.
I've had an extensive memory since I was very young, and things for me started with my guides when I was around 3. That's when at nighttime things started to get a little bit different. So I grew up with I have a twin brother, and when he and I shared a bed for a long time of our childhood, and while that was happening, there were things that would happen to me at nighttime that he would be completely asleep for. So sometimes it would be a visit. Sometimes it would of a being that I knew was there, but I couldn't quite see. Other times it would be a being that I could see. And most of the time, it was me having experiences in the astral realm just through my third eye. So there were just the activation of my pineal gland and essentially practicing the use of that, which when I was 3, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know that that's what was happening. I just knew that I was in another realm, and it felt totally familiar to me. It was these visits and these experiences, they were not scary. They did not alarm me. It was very normal. And I suppose it's just because of what my soul is here to do that it was very natural. I also interacted with people and spirits who had already passed on. That was very normal for me as a very small child. It did not strike me as odd, and it was not scary. In fact, there were quite a few beings, quite a few spirits on the land that we lived in Washington when we moved there, which is when I was a year and a half old. We moved to Washington, and there were quite a few beings there because it was built on indigenous land, actually, and it was built over where a sacred part of a river next to where a graveyard was located, actually. And so when there was a time when we dug up part of the backyard to build a pond, for example, and we found all kinds of Native American artifacts there. And so in the house, there were times when there were spirits. And I remember them kind of playing with me. And I would turn off the television, for example, before going to sleep. This is when I was maybe 7 or 8 years old. Turn off the television before I would go upstairs to get ready for bed. And partway up the stairs, they would turn the TV back on. And I would say, okay, I'll go back and turn it off. And so I was never scared of things like that. There are many people who have a lot of fear with that, but it just simply was not scary for me. And I think that maybe part of it is that there was something very precious and sacred to me, that having those relationships and having this other world that was separate from the rest of my childhood and the rest of my world felt very sacred and dear to me. So I think that's probably part of the reason why it didn't scare me. It just felt very precious, and I really loved it. And so each night when I would go to sleep, beginning when I was 3, that I can consciously remember, I would have lessons. And those lessons ranged from being able to open my awareness and expand my consciousness, to fine-tuning my pineal gland and the radio receiver of my pineal gland, and going up into entering my ka, the 8th chakra, or Merkaba, as some people call it, but the ka chakra, entering that to leave my body. So those are kind of just a variety of lessons that I learned. And these lessons, they were years at a time. This was not like, oh, I go into the void for 2 weeks and now we can move on. That's not how it was. That was the piece that I spent the longest amount of time learning, was how to release the consciousness from the human self and allow my consciousness to expand into a greater consciousness, into a greater mind, and then just become one with the void and maintain a concentration and an awareness within the void. That was the lesson that never left. It was with me all the way through every night and every lesson until I was around 12 or 13, somewhere in there. That continued, but they built on that. So eventually I came to a time when I started to learn how to look at my chakras, and I didn't know they were called chakras. I just knew that they were pieces of energy that lived inside of me, but my guides never called them anything. They just brought my awareness to these different places. And because my awareness would go there, I would learn certain things about myself and actually be able to see certain potentials that lived in my field because of what I was carrying in my chakras. So as an example, there was a time when I was 8 years old and I saw a potential in my chakra that was related to being without a home, being homeless. And so then the next day, I was just playing with myself and we had two or three really large cardboard boxes because of some delivery that had happened to my house. And I took them out outside, and it was raining, and I took them outside and I pretended to be homeless and really to feel what would it be like to not have a home and to have to live inside of this cardboard box and fend for myself. And I went through this kind of mental practice. It turned out that I actually did lose my home when I was older, when I was in my late teenage years. I was without a home. And thankfully, not living in a cardboard box, I actually had an upgrade. I was living in a car, which is much nicer. But that kind of experience of being brought into my energy centers and seeing some of the potentials that existed in my field because of the energy that I was carrying from my ancestors, from my karmic past lives, etc., was a very unique experience as a child. And thankfully, for whatever reason, just the way that my mind works, it was again not alarming. It was just this form of preparation. And you know, being this age now, who can say if I had played out that practice of being homeless as the example enough, could I have avoided that experience in this lifetime? I don't know. I'm not sure. But I went through it and got through it, overcame it. I chose a lot of different types of adversity in this lifetime, and I'm extremely grateful that I did. I can really say with genuine sincerity that I am extremely grateful that I chose the adversity that I did. The number of experiences that I've been through and how I was prepared as a child through these different practices at nighttime, through these ways that my guides would speak to me about what would you do if, this kind of very vague way of painting a possible future for me without usurping my free will is something that they have done throughout my lifetime. And being prepared in that way, growing up through that adversity, has deeply humbled me. It has brought me in touch with my humanity in a way that a lot of other experiences can't. When you are living in your car, and that's just part of the experience that you've had, wow, when you finally have a home, there you do not take that for granted. When you have a stove to cook on, you do not take that for granted. And there are so many experiences from the adversity that I've experienced in my life that has made me so deeply grateful and so deeply joyful about small things that other people don't notice or take for granted. And it has taught me how capable I am. I would not be who I am if I had not gone through those things. And so as a child, I had a very interesting kind of preview into some of these things and preview into what I would be doing here with my life, while also being trained in a lot of esoteric teachings that would normally take someone lifetimes to go through. And I think that because of the lifetimes that I've had previous to this one, I was able to go through them still in over the course of years, certainly not weeks or months. So people who come to me and say, I want to learn how to tune into the Akashic records, I say, great. How long have you been meditating? And they say, I don't meditate. And I say, okay, well, we have to start there in order for that to work. I was just blessed with having those experiences as a child. And so here I sit now, able to hone my focus and attune my pineal gland to almost anything, the radio receiver really of our brain. My guides used to have me practice tuning into earth frequencies. And I still remember the first time that I did that. It really tripped me out as a child. I was 9 years old, just on the brink of 9, when I finally mastered how to do this, of tuning into a radio frequency that was from Earth. And so I started, when I was adjusting internally and energetically with my pineal gland, I heard a song that I recognized, and in my head though, and I was laying in my bed, of course, and this is way past my brother and I sharing a room. So I'm laying in my bed alone and I'm like, what is happening? And my eyes immediately open and the music is still there, but then slowly fades. And they, when I went back into concentration, they explained that's exactly what we're having you do. We're having you refine where your adjustment is basically within your pineal gland energetically so that you can choose which frequency band you're listening to.
Oh my gosh.
And there was another time in which I tuned into a police frequency and a trucker frequency. I mean, and as a
Huh.
child,
Wow.
it was a very strange experience.
Are
Um,
your parents like, is your mom and dad and brother, are they aware of you doing what you're doing? You're keeping it all
no,
to yourself?
yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, my guides made it pretty clear that it was not something that I could easily talk about. And the biggest reason is not because my family would have rejected me or told me that, you know, whatever, that I'm talking to the devil. Nothing like that. It's just that they would have influenced me in such a way that I would have developed a lot of self-doubt and would have not been able to progress the way that I was. Keeping it a secret, there was nothing outside of me to talk about my progress. The only progress that I knew and was aware of was coming from within myself, both from my own experience of what I was doing, as well as from then the inner outer experience of my guide speaking to me being able to see things more clearly, tune into things, etc. So that's why I
Wow.
didn't share anything with them.
Go to the place where you haven't had many past lives and you feel, your Vega is your root or where your like home base is. And the experience, like when you look in the mirror, it was hard for you to look at yourself because you couldn't associate with looking at a woman because before you had just left a parallel life. Like, kind of go into that whole thing, the parallel lives
Yeah.
and how you explain that.
Yeah. So as a child, up until it was when I was about 9 that I really tried to start making myself do this, but I couldn't do it fully until I was around 10 or 11. Up until that time, it was very difficult for me to look in the mirror and recognize myself. I I was a little bit weirded out by it as a small child. I really and by small I mean until I was maybe 6. I didn't look in the mirror at all. I did not enjoy wearing things that showed my skin. I remember that very distinctly, having a lot of experiences like that. I didn't like wearing swimsuits. I didn't like wearing things without a
Hmm.
back, like a halter top or anything like that as a child. I just did not feel comfortable showing my skin. Um, and when I was around the age of 7 or 8 is when I started to really realize, oh, I actually don't like looking in the mirror. And it took even longer for me to realize why, because I didn't think about it very much. I realized, oh, this image actually kind of freaks me out. It's a little freaky to see a young girl looking at me when I don't feel like that's me. That doesn't
Huh.
feel like that's how I should look. That doesn't feel like me. And so when again, around 10 or 11, is when I decided that I had to get over that. I just realized, you know what, I have to feel okay, just recognizing who I am and seeing myself. And so I remember the day that I chose to do that, I went and I stood in front of the mirror in my room and I just really looked at every detail of my face and my eyes and my mouth, everything. And I just said, okay, this is really you. This is really you in this lifetime. And it's really okay that this is who you are. And it's gonna take time, but it will feel more natural. The more that you look in the mirror, it will feel more and more natural for you that this is who you are this time around. That's what I remember
Wow.
telling myself as a child. And it's because previously I had my forever, I mean, forever, my whole life, I've had the memory of who I was before, just before this one, and previous memories beyond that. But just before this lifetime, I was a Native American man. And it was it was during the time after we've already had European invasion, and things are starting to shift is really when I was alive. And I was kind of speaking out against that while also trying to like maintain tradition with the young people is what I was doing and educating them on why we had the traditions that we had. And I just could remember all of that. And I could remember for example, how to make different weapons and how to fish, how to sleep outside, how to do all these different things. And I remember
Huh.
there were a few times when my mother would see me in that way, and she would be really surprised, and she would say, how do you know how to do that? How did you just do that? And I said, I just remember. And I would kind of blow it off because I, again, didn't want to share
Mhm.
that it was coming from a previous life. um, but yeah, that was very normal for me. And my father in this lifetime was my brother in the previous lifetime, and I was very well aware of that. It didn't change my relationship with him very much, but I was very aware that he had been my brother previously.
Does your mom understand everything now, or is it still
Hmm.
you share everything with her now?
It's only been actually quite recent that that has happened. But yes, I do. She now knows who I am and what I do in the world.
Will you explain to, because I've interviewed, it's almost 300 episodes, and we've talked, it's been a progression, and I know you know this, and I think of your, uh, you know, 2024 is when you were like downloaded, I'm going to channel to share my channeling. So think of how that's so recent. And I look at this since COVID 2020, these last five and a half, almost 6 years. I can't believe I'm even saying that, of what this progression has been. But when you explain like you call it the second awakening, that we're on the second what second phase of awakening. We've been talking about this, 2020 kind of shifted this. That was the shift where people started to wake up. That's when I started this podcast. I didn't know why I started this podcast. It was like something inside of me said, Ashley, you're going to start a podcast. And everyone thought I was crazy. So here we go. I haven't missed a week. But when I look at how the world has shifted and how you explain, you know, even the children, because I know you worked in Montessori, and I'm drawn to children, and I teach children around San Diego. I go to schools, and I'm so drawn to that, and I am aware of their energy, and I could see that their imagination and their awareness is so different. But will you kind of go into that, like what phase you see the world at, and what's happening to this planet
Yeah.
Earth, this Mother Earth?
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. That's of course, a very wide topic to cover. Um, what I will say though is that starting with where you started, the first stage or level of awakening is recognizing that there is something more to life than what you're living.
Mhm.
That is why I have come to understand that my guides have expressed the majority of humanity is there. The majority of humanity is looking around saying, this is something has to change. This is weird. That why is this the way the world is? Is this really all there is? Is this really how the world is going to continue? It can be that minor of a question. It does not have to be, do aliens exist? Is there such a thing as reincarnation? It doesn't have to be that deep. It's the first level is just recognizing that there's something off about what we're
Mhm.
going through. And so that did happen in 2020 because the entire world was disrupted. So
Right.
regardless of what anybody wants to talk about with the source of that, it was an absolute blessing that that
Mm.
happened because
Yes.
it did shake humanity to its core because it made us finally stop
Right.
and really look around. So from that place, where we are currently going is filled with an equal measure of a desire to maintain and keep something the same. And that is simply I would say, to make it the most simplistic, it's just a form of addiction. That when people are in addiction, they want to keep everything the same. They want to keep filling the void that they feel to stop feeling a certain way. That's addiction. And then there's another group of people who say, even though it's this uncomfortable, I actually really do want to go into this. I really actually do want to make a change. And so there is a lot more talk and a lot more practice of vulnerability, of transparency. There's a lot more understanding of, I'm not going to raise my children the same way that I was raised, and I'm not going to raise my children the way that the rest of the world is still kind of operating because something about that just doesn't feel right to me. I'm going to honor them more. There is also a deeper understanding about the way that we live life in general, the way that we make connections with people. Like, how deep are you able to go with the people that you really spend the most time with? People want depth now. Most people who are awakening or are already awakened, they want to have something real. That is a very large shift from where we were before.
Mm-hmm.
Before, everybody just wanted to keep everything the same. That, of course, that shift in the adults' collective consciousness is affecting our children. Because now our children are looking around saying, okay, my parent doesn't really have it figured out all the time. It was when you and I were children, it was extremely unusual for our parents to cry. To see our parents like losing themselves, that would have been a very unusual experience. For
Mm-hmm.
most people, that would have been unusual. Today, a lot of parents they're struggling because of this awakening, because of the amount of energy that's coming through and where our consciousness is moving to. They're struggling and their children are seeing them struggle. That is in the child. The child is saying, okay, so my mom, my dad doesn't actually have it figured out all the way. What does that mean? Like that has to mean that there's something else in the world that if they don't even understand, then where am I going to receive my wisdom from? And that's all happening unconsciously in the background. And how do I know that that's where children are? Because I have seen it. And it's only been 7 years that that progression has taken place.
Wow.
And it is very clear. When children today, if you are not being authentic, they know immediately.
Oh,
And
totally.
they don't trust you. They don't take you seriously. They just know right away that you're not someone that they can talk to really. You may serve one function, but they know that you're not being authentic. That is a shift in our human consciousness that did not used to exist before. That authenticity is coming out in a variety of ways, which is why I said this topic is quite varied because we could look at it from many different lenses. But that authenticity and that need for authenticity and vulnerability and deep connection, that's coming out in a variety of different ways. So a lot of people, a lot of young people are exploring or re-exploring their identity that usually would have happened at a younger age, like in the teenage years. A lot of people right now are questioning themselves who are, in their later 20s, even as old as in their later 20s, and questioning, is this really who I am? Do I really want to be in this category or this box that society has placed me in? That's really a desire to be more authentic and to be seen as their own person, and that's okay. It's gonna express exactly as it needs to. But moving forward, what we are going to keep seeing is children coming in with greater and greater levels of self-awareness and a higher, or I will say a lower tolerance for what they deem to be inauthentic, and a higher awareness to what is authentic. That changes the game because if a child, let's say who is 10, already has an expectation of authenticity, they're likely going to maintain that throughout their lifetime. That's not something that's going to wane. It's
Right.
likely going to grow. That's going to force our culture to continue to evolve and shift. Because if children at that young of an age want something that's authentic, then all of the inauthentic stuff is going to get left behind. That, and again, that's such a high level abstract overview of what this consciousness awakening looks like. But that's in a nutshell. That is what's happening. That's what we're seeing.
They talk a lot, I mean, about the two earths, the dividing, and I know that you talk about it's the choice of where you focus, and how you taught that to me in the last few days was it's so much clearer to me, understanding that, everyone's like, oh, we're moving to the 5D, or, those people are going to be in some, it's like, no, it's all where you choose to focus. And I would love for you to explain that because that really helps people understand that it's not splitting.
Yeah, beautiful. So In order to explain that, we have to get into quantum physics. I usually don't go this deep, but I will. It's necessary. So our world thus far has been built upon the principles of Newton's law, and that's about cause and effect. That's about matter, changing matter. So when as a very simple example, when we plant a seed in the ground, we have to water it, and then the seed has to get enough light and enough nutrients from the soil, and then we have a tree that grows. Okay, that's matter to matter changing.
Got it.
That's the third dimension. Moving to the fifth dimension, that can be seen and understood as quantum physics, now coming into the mainstream consciousness and mainstream awareness. We are still working to understand that, but that is the fifth dimension. The fifth dimension is the quantum field. It is the field of nothing. It is the void, the thing that I was trained in as a child. So having an understanding of the way the 5D works, the way the quantum world works, that is how you then realize how our consciousness is also changing. So we are coming to a place of understanding that rather than needing to be just a solid piece of matter, making some choice and taking some amount of time to make a change in the world, such as planting a seed to grow into a tree, we are understanding and remembering we are actually a part of energy, a part of an infinite source of energy that can create anything it wants in any period of time because time doesn't actually exist.
Right.
It's just a construct here in this world, in this third dimension, to keep order and balance. But in the quantum, you don't actually need the type of order that is present here. It is unpredictably ordered rather than predictably ordered like we have here in the third dimension. So the laws of reality, the laws of physics, they change when we go into the fifth dimension, when we go into the quantum field. That can be easily seen, and I would say the simplest way of understanding it, and to start this, if you or any of you who are listening have not looked into this, is to understand the double slit experiment. There are many videos online that talk about that. There's one called Dr. Quantum and the double slit experiment that goes into this and explains it very simply. In essence, electrons behave differently when they are observed versus when they are not observed. So, what does that mean? Us, the observer, perceiving our reality outside of us in the third dimension is what creates the manifest form of everything we see. So, for example, the computer that you are looking at, it is created in this way because your understanding of the electrons that are creating your computer are how you now perceive your computer. Okay. If your understanding of electrons shifted, you might be able to perceive your computer in the way it actually appears, which is not as a manifest object. The reality of atoms and electrons is that there is actually more space and therefore less matter than there is matter. So it's quite strange that we actually should be able to touch anything and feel that it is physical. It is only because of our observation that something becomes physical that we cannot pass through it. So, this change in consciousness, we are learning how to become a different type of observer. We are changing our awareness to become a quantum observer of ourself first, and then a quantum observer of our reality. The way that that is going to shift things means that we will understand again what instantaneous manifestation is. We will simply manifest what we are wanting right before us because we will be able to observe those electrons into form, into matter. The way that that starts is first through self-observation. It always starts right here. It doesn't matter what you're talking about. It's always here. It's always first inside of you. Becoming a quantum observer of yourself and your life so that you can change your own consciousness first. When you change your consciousness, you now become a quantum observer. That changes the electrons all around you that you observe, and that is what evolves consciousness. That's how we as a collective, as a family, are going to help evolve each other. When we become quantum observers, and our consciousness changes, we are able to observe other people into a higher level of consciousness. So it won't take quite as long if we are able to start doing that more effectively and more collaboratively. But that is where we are shifting to. And that is the change between this old earth, this new earth. Old earth is three-dimensional. It's based on Newtonian laws. The new earth that is fifth dimensional is based on quantum laws, quantum understanding. And if you begin that journey now, then yes, you are helping to create the new earth. That's what you're doing. It's not that we're just going to rip out the old earth. I laugh because I have been very literal in my life. And even I'm a double Capricorn. So like very practical, very literal. And so even as a child, going into these experiences, I would take things too literally. And we as humans have a tendency to do that. So try not to be so literal about, oh, we're moving into a new earth, and that means that we're moving to a new planet. That means that we're changing to a timeline where nobody else exists and only the people who want this exist. Try not to take it so literally. That's not the idea. It's a quantum metaphor. That's how I would encourage you to look at that.
Yeah. And I love how you say everything in life is a metaphor.
It's much easier understood. I mean,
Yes.
the creator, if they are nothing else, they are an absolute beautifully poetic artist. So, of course, it would all be a metaphor.
Right. Can we channel? Not we, but would you mind channeling and see what comes through?
Sure. Yeah. Do you have an idea of questions?
Yeah, I do have some that I was going to start asking you, and then I thought maybe it'd be fun to see what comes through and maybe explain to people because I know you don't know who comes through and you do channel different entities or what, I don't know what you call them, but will you explain the process and you're a trans channel and how that works?
Yeah, so it's I have a lot going on. It's a bit of both. So there are times when I will tune in to a being or to a collective of beings, and they will let me know that either they want me to speak on their behalf or that they will speak through me. I now, after years of doing this, have come to understand it's a distinction in the energy that they want and that they need, because there are times when they are explaining something fully telepathically to me, and so it's very difficult to be able to put that into words, which means they want me to act as the translator, the being that is actually receiving their message and then able to put it into human terms. And that's been a very fun and interesting process. And then there are other times when they know precisely the way that they're going to put something into human terms, and it is also very much tied to the energy that's coming through the transmission. So I never know what to expect, and sometimes I start in one way and then end up in another way. So we will see what happens, and I guess who's going to come through, because I have not planned. I have no idea. So I
I
can
love
tune
it.
in.
Uh,
Yeah. Okay. So the all right. So there are actually two groups here. One is the first group who came forward is a collective of Syrian beings. I call them a Syrian Council. They are really here on behalf of humanity's evolution. There is another group of beings that are very tied to me personally. They've been guides with me since I was a child, really, and they are very tied to humanity's evolution. They are these three Pleiadian priestesses that work with me, and they work very closely with humanity because they too are moving out of a time of darkness, if you will, and unconsciousness, and into a time of greater consciousness and greater light. And so there's a lot of similarities
hmm.
that they feel, and a lot of guidance and wisdom that they can offer because there are things they've already gone through. And also by witnessing and perceiving what we're going through, they then are also able to learn. So they are both here, and you are welcome to ask whatever you'd like.
From their perspective, or from your perspective, what does it look like as in your eyes or the energy that we are on this earth at this time?
It's a beautiful question. Okay, Syrians. One moment. They are actually wanting to speak through me, so I'm just going to back up a little bit more. The energy that we are noticing most often these days are fluttery and chaotic. There are those who are choosing to ground themselves and take off again and again. There are those who are simply sitting and miring in their own chaos and in their own destruction. Those are the beings who are maintaining a certain level of fear, and it will take quite a bit to awaken them to a space where they are open to standing up again, and even willing to open their wings and to take off as others are willing to do at this time. There are many who are trying to fly, who are trying to take off, who have not yet learned how to use their wings properly. That is where certain teachers, certain teachings come in to support a being going through this process of preparing for the first flight, preparing for the first time in this lifetime to allow their soul to be what guides them, to allow their heart to be what leads them, to allow their heart and their soul to fly freely. We are noticing the energy of chaos, we are noticing the energy of unrest, and we are noticing the energy of deep grounding, the energy of deep creation. How we perceive this is through spheres. These spheres hold certain colors, certain frequencies that we are able to denote as either chaotic, fearful, destructive, or based in creation and curiosity. These appear to us as different shapes as well as different forms of energy that we will either move toward or move away from. The energy of chaos and destruction we are not able to reach. That is an energy that is too dense for us to have any ability to manipulate. The energy that is lighter, the energy of the beings who are trying to fly for the first time is easier to reach because they are open. There is a sense of wonder and curiosity to them, even if they have not yet learned what they are opening to. We are able to reach these beings in mild ways, all the way up to very intense, extreme ways appearing before them, which you will come in the months and years ahead. You will see how we arrive. You will see us arrive in certain physical form and primarily arrive in energetic form, appearing to those who are ready to see us.
From if you've experienced what we are going through now in the dense energy, and you're watching that because you've had experience, what would be your best advice for the humans now on Earth to move to that upper elevation, higher density?
Who would like to answer this question? Okay. So the Pleiadians would like to answer this question. One moment. What would you like to say? They are saying trust is the first piece. To trust the unfolding balance that is happening, that is around you. To trust that it truly is in perfect harmony and perfect alignment. To understand that if things were not in perfect balance as they are right now, everything would cease to exist. There is a perfection to the equilibrium that is currently around us, and although it seems very intense or chaotic when we turn our attention one way, and it might seem very lighthearted and joyful if we turn our attention the other way, there is a perfect equilibrium that is taking place within each being that is a representation of the whole of the earth. And so trust is what allows you to move into this equilibrium state within your own self. And it is also what allows the equilibrium and the trust to be more pervasive around the planet, to enter into the hearts and minds of those around you, as well as to enter into the collective consciousness, which spreads to beings that are not around you in non-local ways. You are able to affect and support the evolution that way. So they are saying that trust is the first piece so that there can be a sense of surrender, a sense of relaxing into this change and this process. And they are likening it to a mother giving birth. If a mother was not able to relax and surrender to the process of childbirth, if she was constantly holding herself back and holding in contractions and wanting to contract her muscles and not relax, then the child would not be able to be born. But the mother has to trust and surrender fully in order for this new child to be born. And that is the process that we are in. We are birthing a new human because it is a new form of consciousness. And this new human has to come in the form of energy first, as all manifestations arrive first as a thought, then as an energy, and then they appear in manifest physical form. And so we have moved from thought to birthing the energy. And that is the phase we are currently in. We are currently birthing the energy of the new earth, the energy of the new human. And that is shifting the energy of the hearts and the minds, as well as the nervous systems of the humans that already exist on this planet. And that is leading to the birth of a new human that will eventually grace our planet and grace our families in the years to come. But it is happening first on an energetic level at this time.
Can you explain what the new human looks like and how they are going to be opening their abilities, their DNA levels, awakening, not only being in the, 2 strands to 3 strands, it's going up to 12. How will the humans, the new human that you speak of, look like?
Okay. So yeah, again, these are my sisters, these my Pleiadian sisters. So okay. Hmm. They are describing a progression that there will be certain evolutions within our DNA that take place beneath the surface that do not show themselves in a manifest form, and there will be certain pieces of evolution that take place within the DNA that will appear in a manifest form, as in we will see it on the external side of the body. The majority of this, however, is happening within, and we will not actually see the changes taking place with outside of the human body. They are saying, though, they're showing me, it's very rapid over a course of a long time, that the primary evolution that will be taking place with our DNA is going to change our energy structures and our chakras, as well as our energy bodies and the other energy structures. The electromagnetic field of our being is going to shift. And how is it's a very complex image. Can you put into words? Okay. So they are saying that the way that our electromagnetic structure is going to shift, it is actually going to change our relationship to the earth, because the electromagnetic field of the earth is also shifting, is also upgrading. And so what we perceive in our earth, as in what we perceive in the physical world around us, we are going to see a lot of non-physical things. That is one of the reasons why this idea of disclosure happening is not in the way that everyone thinks it is. It's not in the way of ships necessarily coming to land here. Yes, that will happen eventually, but the beginning is noticing what is already living amongst us. And that shift is happening now just through the use of people tuning their pineal gland and their ability to see beyond the third dimension, beyond the veil. But that is going to become the norm for children going forward. And that is part of the effect of the DNA changing. And so that is something that has a physical impact, but does not change the way someone physically appears. That is one example they are giving. And then they are going very, 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 very far forward in the future. And so what do you want to show me here? Okay. 700 years in the future. I've never seen this far into the future. Never looked. Wow. I'm just seeing I'm seeing different humans that are 700 years in the future. It's interesting. They look similar, but not the same. As we do right now, they look they look Most people look very similar, actually, to each other. There is less variety in the features, and a greater, there is, energetically, it's very clear to feel there is a greater harmony between each person. It's almost, it's almost as if the understanding that each person is me is manifest because each person looks somewhat similar. There's not a huge variety in the physical characteristics, and so people look somewhat the same. And again, it's like that is that's like how the people see each other, is that of course that's me because that person looks similar to me, which is quite interesting to see that and unexpected. But that is a long way in the future, but not as long as I would have expected. It's only it's close to 800 years in the future, but it's only 777 years, 75 years in the future. And I can tell that there's something different about the skin. And I perhaps will, they are allowing me to see it, and so maybe I won't go off too far into that. Too far into that to allow you to ask another question, but we look somewhat the same.
Are we eating? Are we energetically healing? Are we, how is, the government, the education? Are we living in small little communities? How does that look? And how soon is that, I guess, is my
This is
question.
775 approximately years in the future that I am seeing this. And there are communities that have started. Let me see if I can zoom out to the whole Earth. Yeah, okay. So it is a good portion of the Earth, not every single place in the Earth, but places where communities have started is where people look somewhat similar. And it looks like, in terms of education, very different system. There is it's an advanced system. Children are able to learn much more rapidly and learn topics at a much deeper level than the way the current system is. The current system is very slow. I can see and just feel the energy is very rapid in this education system. Children are able to advance very rapidly. And what that allows them to do is go a lot deeper into subjects that are very interesting to them. So I can see there is actually a space development program that children are able to move toward, which is quite interesting. There is a new type of neuroscience that again is taught at a very young age. Wow, that's really beautiful to see. And several other topics that are very deep biology, for example, cellular biology, for example, is taught, as well as quantum physics is taught to children who are quite young. And I can see that what's interesting is that it looks like a combination of people around, different teachers around the world who will come, who may specialize in a certain topic such as quantum physics, and they will teach many children essentially at the same time, if you will, the same topic around the world, but it looks like they're in the classroom. So maybe it's a hologram. Yes, I guess it's a hologram that they're able to teach. And so it's a real person actually teaching. They're just not there in present with the children. But that's for specialized topics that happens. The rest of the time, children are with real people, real adults, and also out in the natural world, experiencing the natural world. So it's a very advanced form of education that I have not seen before. It's quite beautiful. So there's a little piece of that. You also asked about the government system. What is the government? Okay. So yeah, this is quite interesting. It actually looks like the people who have chosen to live in these communities, they operate with their own type of governing body. And then there are other groups in the world who have chosen not to or are currently not living that way, and they have their own kind of situations happening independently with each other. But this other group who have chosen to live like this, they really operate in kind of one with kind of one format, if you will. And so there are perhaps small or minor distinctions between different areas of where someone lives, but for the most part, it is relatively the same. And also, the energy is very much that people are self organizing much more than currently. And so there's not, as me as a human perceiving that, I would say there's not really a need for as much of a very strong governing body in the way that we understand a governing body to be, in terms of having this authority. And that's because there's an inner authority that is very present with people, and a very a common shared goal is between each person, which makes them naturally self-organizing, therefore kind of eliminating the need to have a governing body the way we have currently, because the current governing bodies are kind of putting out a lot of fires, trying to maintain some sense of order, even though it's chaotic. And in this place, the order is self-generated. And so there's just not really a need to have an external authority figure. That's energetically what I can see is happening there. I will also say the only way to actually describe this what I'm seeing, to me, feels like a quantum leap in evolution, because for that to only be almost 800 years in the future is actually quite shocking to me. That is a very small amount of time, given given how long it has taken humanity to get to where we are right now. That's not a long time. That's actually a very short amount of time. That is a quantum leap in evolution. So clearly, enough people have signed on to the 5D, to the quantum reality, that actually a quantum evolution has taken place within our society. The last piece that you asked about was energy healing and healthcare. What does that look like? And are we eating? Right. So are we eating? Not in the same way? Okay. Huh. It's like we are feeding our physical bodies, but it is again, in this particular culture that I'm looking at. I don't know about the kind of the rest of the world, but over here, what I'm seeing is that it's like it's like a paste. It's not really it's kind of like a paste, though. It's a very easily digestible, uh, complete, nutrient dense food that is very easily consumed. And there's just not really a lot of focus around food quite as much. There is still that I can see that there are times and also spaces to celebrate food and to celebrate with food, but on a day-to-day basis, it is kind of it's become kind of simple. So there's that. And then you asked about healthcare and energy work. What does that look like? Hmm. Okay. And so my that's really nice to know. Thank you for saying that. So my sisters are chiming in with what I'm looking at here. I'm looking at kind of a healthcare situation, which I will describe. They are saying that what I am seeing is like the ideal of this community. And
Mhm.
so there are still challenges and things that are being worked out and being learned in this world that I'm seeing, and they're showing the ideals to me because that's what we want to strive for. And so they are saying that's why they're highlighting that, which is really quite nice to know. And I was curious. So healthcare, okay. They are saying there are places even in this community where there is still a practice of what we would consider to be closer to Western medicine in terms of it's somewhat invasive. However, I can see that it's done with robots, exclusively with robots. There are no humans involved basically at all in whatever might be happening, a surgery or of some kind, procedure of some kind. That is a very rare occurrence, and I'm so curious, why is that still happening? What is it that causes? Wow. Hmm. Okay. They were describing that there are the vast majority of what we would call healthcare. Firstly, a person's own internal sense of order and internal awareness. They really have an understanding of what's going on with them for the most part. When that internal self-awareness fails or is just not enough on its own, then they have an external person to kind of assess them and see what is happening, and it is always assessed energetically, and energetically being both energetic within the bodies, the chakras, and emotionally. So that, and mentally. So all of that happens while also looking at the actual physical experience, if there is a physical experience that that person is having with whatever they're going through. That is all assessed. And for the most part, I would say over 70, it looks like 78, thank you, Arcturians, 78% of the time, um, people are able to really just work through that in that manner. When that does not happen, when that does not work, when there is something deeper, and this is what I was asking them, why is it that that happens? It's very interesting what they're showing me. It is like within a person's lineage that they're carrying, there is a manufactured, it doesn't look organic. So that's what I mean when I say manufactured. Metal, like rectangular prism that is embedded within their root. That is just an image. And sorry if that's too abstract for anyone listening. That is an image, though, that is showing the long-term effects of what that person's lineage has been carrying that has not been able to be worked out previously.
Mm.
So there, what the importance of that is to show that, wow, oh, that's so, wow. The importance of that is to show that it does not require every single human to be fully healed and not carry any ancestral baggage before we can live in harmony.
Mm.
It doesn't require that. Part of living in harmony and moving toward that type of consciousness will include helping to heal people. That for some people, there are wounds that actually can only be healed with that level of consciousness surrounding them. That finally living in that high vibration of a way, that's when this can finally be healed from however long they've been carrying it for. And that's really encouraging because it means there is not so much pressure on us as individuals or on us as a collective to say that if you don't heal, then I guess you just won't be part of the new earth, as so many
Hmm.
people say. That is not the case, which is just so affirming, because of course living in a supportive, loving environment is what allows traumas to heal. Which means there are some people who that's the only way they will heal, is through living in an environment, in a society like that. And that's when those things will finally be healed, and in their lineage they will no longer be carrying that. So that is very
Wow.
uplifting. That's very encouraging to hear that. And that is quite a preview into the future. Wow. Thank you for asking those questions, letting me see that.
Oh,
And thank you, sisters, for letting me see.
thank you so much. Can we bring Eluña back?
Mm.
That was amazing.
Energy stays with me. Mm. Mm. Wow. Thank you. That was really that was really incredible to see that. Wow.
Oh, that was amazing. Thank you, thank you,
Mm.
thank you, thank you. You
Wow.
know, like watching you, and it's just like so. I don't want to say. I see. I think people understand that we're all capable of what you do. Like we can, if we connect to the void and have a practice of doing that, and are dedicated and have that as a practice every day. And if that's a message that I get from you, is that we can all do that, but you dedicate and are so disciplined, and it's just amazing to listen to your magic.
As long as it can inspire and offer faith, then and a new way of being, then I will continue to do this work. That is
Yes,
really what's the greatest reason for me. So I'm glad that it gives you that, that it reminds
yeah,
you of magic.
yes, it does. How can we end this and share with people how they can find you, what you're doing, what's coming up your in your life that's lighting you up?
Yeah, beautiful. Um, well, if you want to see more of me just for free, then I am on YouTube as Eluña Noelle. If you want to go a little bit deeper, I have a community called The Circle, and it's an online membership that includes a full social media platform, if you will. I created it that way because there are so many. It's difficult to find really nice, loving community that's also doing a lot of practices. So in this community, I hold live events that are online and also sometimes in person. But we have a meditation that we do every month together, as well as a live Q&A, and opening into being classes. So I teach classes online with my membership community. That is actually starting in October.
Hmm.
um, and I hold private readings for people in my community. So I that's really the way that I am doing readings now, Akashic readings and kind of energy readings, rather than doing it for everybody, because it's a lot of time. And so I really just do that for people who want to go really deep in these practices and actually do something with this information, rather than treating it as some type of entertainment. That is, I am not here as an entertainer.
Mhm.
I am
Right.
here as a teacher. And so it's really, if someone does not want to be learning, then I'm just not the right person. So if you want to do that, then you can do that online. And if you want to learn with me in person, then I am actually, soon the dates will be announced, that I will be holding two events for a pretty long time, actually. One at the Omega Institute.
Oh,
Next year,
wow.
it'll be my second time going back, and it's going to be for a week this time. So that will be next July. And then I will be also holding a 5-day workshop at the Art of Living in November of next year. So that's to be with me in person, and those things will be announced to the people who are on my newsletter. So if you want to sign up for that, you just put your email in, and you can do that at my website, eluñanoelle.com. and stay in touch. Yeah. And then of course I'm on Instagram. It's not really me, to be honest. I am not on Instagram. My team is on Instagram on my behalf, and I participate in writing the posts and all of that, but it's really them. So if you're on there, you're welcome to reach out to me. I might not see your messages for a long time, but you can find me on there with content that I release. Yeah.
Where's the Art of Living? I know they will make an institute, but
It is
where?
in South Carolina,
Oh, okay.
and on a beautiful mountain called Heaven Mountain. Also, I might be saying South Carolina and I might be wrong, which I should know where it is, but I've never been there.
Oh, funny.
So sorry if I'm wrong. But it's on a mountain called, yeah, Heaven
Heaven.
Mountain.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Started by it was a whole channeled experience of how this man started this retreat center there, and then it was taken over by another retreat center. It's only been in the hands of spiritual people, so it's quite
Huh.
beautiful, the story.
Oh,
Yeah.
how neat. Oh, so cool to be in person with you. Amazing. Well, thank you, thank you, thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Mm.
I know this when I get this out, that one week that I put you, I will be waking up so early. Like, cannot wait to shout you to my world. And I think you're just so beautiful and so connected. And it's been so fun to have you in my ear and just my being in the last week or so, just really going into your life and your magic. And it's just been so amazing. So thank you. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you. I'm
And I
glad
will
to know
meet you
that.
in person one day. I
I
promise.
very much look forward to that. A very big hug.
No, thank you.